As Donald Trump hosted European leaders in the White House this week, he declared that peace in Ukraine was at hand. The list of obstacles remains long, however. One of the most important unresolved questions is about security guarantees. A nightmare scenario for Ukrainians is that Russia will use a peace deal to rebuild its military and re-emerge as a more formidable force to finish the job. Security guarantees could take a variety of forms. They might include U.S. air support for European-led operations if Russian forces resume hostilities, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance assistance for Ukrainian missions, or a naval presence to prevent Russian control of the Black Sea and access to the Danube. So the question is, how can the U.S. and Europe guarantee that Russia will not invade Ukraine? And the general insights regarding the future of the conflict, how do the European and Ukrainian experts assess the idea? Azer News turns to foreign political experts to answer these questions.
As leaders talk about peace, Ukrainians worry about a pause that lets Russia rearm and return stronger. The only guarantees that matter are automatic, European, and enforceable. With Washington signaling that Europe must carry more of the burden, the gold standard can no longer be Article 5 of NATO alone. Not only because Ukraine is not yet a member, but also because it is no longer certain how reliable Article 5 would hold if tested, for instance, in the Baltics. That is why Europe must look to its own treaty commitments, above all, Article 42.7 of the Treaty of the European Union. This is the EU's mutual defense clause. If Europe operationalizes it for Ukraine, it would show that Europe itself takes responsibility. Tailored 42.7 Ukraine Compact would provide a collective treaty-based guarantee, bridging the gap until Ukraine can join NATO. But legal text alone is not enough. Guarantees must be credible in practice. That means a steady supply line of air and missile defense built on multi-year contracts, long-range strike capabilities, as well as real-time intelligence and surveillance sharing, automatic snapback sanctions locked in by European legislation, industrial capacity on war footing with multi-year procurement and delivery targets, and a maritime presence to keep the Black Sea and the Danube corridor open. The Danube is Ukraine's economic lifeline and Europe's responsibility. If Russia controls these routes, it controls Ukraine's survival. Still, security without justice is fragile, and a ceasefire that rewards aggression is just peace, not a just peace. As Lauterpacht and Lemkin taught us in Lviv, accountability and international law are the foundation of stability. Justice, through responsibility for a war crime and reparations, is part of deterrence. Only a just peace can endure. Looking ahead, expect a stop-start war while Russia tests Europe's resolve with missiles, drones, and hybrid pressure. If Europe operationalizes Article 42.7, as I mentioned, and keeps the Danube and the Black Sea corridor open, Ukraine can hold the line and rebuild its capacity. If guarantees are vague, Moscow will probe elsewhere. In the Baltics, for instance, in the Suwalki corridor, or in Moldova, counting on hesitation. And wherever it starts, Russia is unlikely to do it with tanks alone. It will test it with cyber, sabotage, and fast salvos. Actually, this is already happening right now. And that must be met with pre-delegated rules of engagement, cross-border air defense, and rapid reinforcement plans. If the Kremlin believes Europe can act without Washington's minute-by-minute lead, the temptation to test Article 5 drops. So, the task is clear. Codify automaticity under Article 42.7, keep Ukraine's sea lanes open, and align accountability with deterrence. Security and justice are not parallel tracks. They are the same road. And this is how peace becomes durable, not just declared.
The idea of security guarantees for Ukraine is not new. Under 1994 Budapest Memorandum, the United States, the United Kingdom, and Russia pledged assurances in exchange for Ukraine's renunciation of its nuclear arsenal. This framework, however, proved ineffective during Russia's 2014 attempt of annexation of Crimea and subsequent hybrid aggression in Donetsk and Luhansk regions carried out by one of the guarantors itself. Following the onset of full-scale invasion in 2022, security guarantees in brackets resurfaced in the form of an initiated draft agreement between Ukrainian and Russian delegations. The precise contours of these mechanisms remained opaque, yet the issue has continued to feature prominently in negotiations frequently exploited by Russia as leverage. Expectations of Ukrainian counteroffensive successes in mid-2023 prompted NATO's summit in The Hague to launch a diplomatic track focused on memoranda of security commitments for Ukraine. This text, however, fell short of providing credible assurances of direct military intervention in the event of renewed Russian aggression. The emergence of the Coalition of the Willing has since consolidated a group of states prepared not only to sustain material support for Ukraine, but also in principle to deploy a limited military contingent, likely confined to areas west of the Dnieper River and distant from the active front line. On the August 18 during Washington meeting, bringing together President Trump, President Zelensky, senior European leaders, EU and NATO high leadership officials, signaled Europe's intent to contain Russia militarily within Ukraine and to prevent renewed large-scale offensives from Russia. Simultaneously, it underscored the degree to which European security continues to rely on US capabilities in the event of Russian aggression against NATO's eastern flank. European policymakers generally acknowledged that any ceasefire or armistice would be temporary, judgment reinforced by Russia's ongoing accumulation of weapons stockpiles, expansion of military infrastructure along NATO's borders, tightening censorship within Russia, and increasingly coercive mobilization policies. Within this framework, the Trump administration has prioritized a European-led deterrence core on Ukrainian soil, with the US contributing logistics, intelligence, and technological support. France, the United Kingdom, and Germany actually have expressed willingness to deploy their own contingents, though the combined force is unlikely to exceed 20 to 30,000 personnel. More plausibly, the US and its partners will continue to emphasize strengthening Ukraine's indigenous defense capacity, sustained weapons deliveries, advanced troop trainings, and integrated military drills. Ukrainian officials, what's more, including Defense Minister Shmyhal, have confirmed that the size of the armed forces of Ukraine will remain substantial even after hostilities diminish, while military education will be further institutionalized across civilian universities and schools. Regarding the future of the conflict, actually, the conflict remains in the phase of strategic uncertainty. Both Ukraine and Russia are depleting their economic and human resources, deepening dependence on allied states. Over the long term, this dynamic will shape significant political consequences for both countries, of course. In Russian case, unlike Ukraine's, the rigidity of its political system, the entrenchment of authoritarianism, or even the elements of totalitarian state, and accumulating social cost could eventually trigger disintegration dynamics. In the medium term, however, Moscow is expected to persist in leveraging military aggression as a means of domestic consolidation and regime survival. A ceasefire remains possible, so far, as a tool for Russia to secure a strategic pause. But a comprehensive peace settlement is highly unlikely. Neither side, under current leadership, current administrations, is prepared to formalize territorial concessions. Any truce would be fragile, with the risk of escalation persisting. A renewed full-scale conflict could erupt at short notice and may even extend beyond Ukraine into Central and Eastern Europe.
As experts point out the main obstacles on guaranteeing Ukraine's future, the solution is yet to come into fruition. Let us know your thoughts in the comment down below, and do not forget to like, subscribe to our channel.